Welcome to the Pelican Brief with your host, David Tapman.
Welcome to the Pelican Brief. I am your host, David Tapman, and we are so delighted to have a special guest in our studio today, Monique Appeaning, who is running for House District 66 in Baton Rouge. And so welcome to the show, Monique.
Thank you. I'm definitely excited to be here.
Well,
I appreciate the invitation.
I'm excited for you to be here because as I drive up and down the road to get to my house, I see your signs all over the place. So you're obviously out there working, doing great things. So thank you so much for being here. Why don't you take the opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, good morning. Good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Great day.
Yes, hello. I'm Monique Appeaning, and I'm running for House District 66. I'm born and raised in Louisiana, and I live in District 66, and I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to represent the district. I have over 25 years of experience working for the legislature, working for the executive branch of government, working in the budget office, working in the legislative fiscal office, and I bring a wealth of knowledge and experience that would allow me to represent our district and the state in a way that others may not. As a legislative staffer and as a person working in the budget office through the ranks, I bring in knowledge and just information or knowledge that I would have that would be added value for our district and for the state. So I'm really excited about being here and going a little bit further into information on why what I know separates me from the pack that I think would bring added value for the office of representative for.
So the legislative fiscal office and a lot of those offices are sort of the heartbeat of the operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't, so many of our challenges are about money. You can't spend money you don't have. It's hard with an operation as big as a state government to know where the money is and what it's going to look like today. And so I've worked, obviously, with the legislative fiscal office in my role as a lobbyist for a long time, and you guys do great work. Even though if we might not agree with you, we have a conversation and give you additional information. And maybe we still don't agree, but you guys, I think, y'all do a great job. And so, and clearly because of that, you understand the inner workings of things like budget and, dollars and where they go a lot better than most and a lot better than me. And I've been doing it for 35 years. So tell us a little bit. I mean, your district is obviously in Baton Rouge. We talked about that a little bit. But just tell us about, the general description geographically of your district. And we'll put a map up for you as well. But tell us just a little bit generally about how is it defined?
Well, it's a pretty large landmass.
It is.
It goes all the way from I-12, O'Neill, all the way down to River Road. And so some of the major areas would be Jones Creek, George O'Neill, Tiger Bend, Harold's Ferry, Hootooshoo, right? Jefferson Highway, Old Perkins Road, Barringer Foreman, Elliott, Babin Road, Monitor Road, parts of Airline, Acord, Highland Road, Bluebonnet Highlands, Antioch, Stomberg. I know, right? And so south, Sherwood Forest, Coursey, Burbank, Nicholson, Kendallwood. I don't know if you know what Kendallwood is.
I do.
And I mentioned before River Road, but it really is the southeastern part, really, of the parish. And it also are the borders for Livingston, Ascension, and Iberville, if you can believe it. So, yes.
Well, yeah, because I think you and I were talking before the show, but when I leave my neighborhood, which is really not that big of a neighborhood, when I leave my neighborhood, I'm looking at your district. It's right across the highway from mine. I guess that's why I get to see all of your signs. So tell us and tell the audience about what made you want to run for state representative.
I love the question. I want to see change, and I believe that I have the skill set to hit the ground running. I have the background that would allow me to be able to go in and do a deep dive, and be able to affect change immediately. The learning curve is slim to none, hitting the ground running. Being a legislative staffer and even working in the budget office, I was often engaged all the time during session.
Sure.
Working with legislators, working with other stakeholders on various topics, but primarily dealing with the state's fisc, dealing with the state budget, and so I believe that I can come in and actually help. Not that others aren't, and I certainly would encourage even now, and I've said it before, for other people with legislative experience or experience in the system, I'm going to call it the system,
Sure,
if you will,
right.
please run.
Yeah.
Because I believe that we would provide added value with our knowledge base and our experience, to hit the ground, to be able to really have change and affect change.
Yeah, and I want to commend you for offering yourself for public service, because I can assure you that I know that it is a thankless job. Not many people call you and go, "You're doing a great job." They're going to call you and tell you when it's not good. But there's no doubt that that's a big deal. So let's. We do this little game we sort of play, and we say, okay, poof, magic. You were elected last night, and so now you are state representative, and we'll go past all the organizational meetings and everything and say, okay, now's your first day on the job. What are the key things that you want to do as a newly elected legislature to make change in Louisiana, like you referred to?
Love the question. It's very interesting, the campaigning. I've had interesting meetings with different stakeholders, LIB, Committee 100, PAR, Council for a Better Louisiana, the Chamber, and then I've also had interactions with the Pelican Institute. What's interesting, and why am I talking about them? Because there are things that I want to do that I did not know that they've spent a lot of time and money on things that I'm already interested in doing. And so partnering definitely with some that have already done the groundwork on a lot of this, and I like that. And so to answer your question, I'm looking at limited government. I'm looking at lowering taxes. I'm looking at pro-business, dealing with things that would bring industry in. I'm also looking at protecting our neighborhoods. So that's a component of dealing with crime issues. And so having said that, one of the things as a staffer, I'm just going to, this is all related.
Yeah.
But something that I found very interesting that I would look at every year, and some of the numbers have come out. So one of the things just primarily that I would look at, and I'll connect them. And one of the things I did want to also talk about that I look at, and that I still think that there are components of it. There was the Comprehensive Solutions for Sustainable Tax and Spending structure. That was a task force that released recommendations.
That's right, I remember that.
And I absolutely love a lot of the things that are here that have yet to be done. But that's one of the other things that I've been looking at. But one of the things, we talk about crime as an example. There have been discussions on repealing or pulling back some things. There's this saying, and it's in scripture about looking at the outer, but you need to be focused on the inner.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been looking at, and like I said, as a staffer that I would look at, are some of the numbers in our correctional facilities. One of the things that I looked at, and I don't know if people often know, but only 20% of the population are eligible that's eligible to participate in educational programs. Only 20% of them of a whole, let's say 15,000. I think that's a pretty low number.
It is.
So if we say that let's say the population is 15,000 or 14,000
Right.
for the sake of numbers, and let's say that the eligible population is 10,000. If you only have 2,000
Right.
and you have 10,000 leaving,
Yeah,
what's happening with the other 8?
that's right.
And one of the things that I want to do is I want that number to increase, because I think we need to have a more holistic approach. You need to deal with what's going on in the inside. And I do commend, and I have, when I've talked about it before, Secretary LeBlanc and his team, and I don't know if it's a resource allocation or an appropriation matter, but that 20% needs to go up.
Yeah.
I would love for it to be 100%, because on average, I just looked at the numbers recently, over 14,000 people were released from the facilities. So if you have that number of people released and only 2,000, if I'm just going to play with the numbers, we have a problem. So you wonder why. So I think we need to have that number increase. Now, that leads me to the interesting discussions that I've had as a candidate with the invites and meetings with people like Lobby. There are programs that they have that they just released. I love they have a new 7-year strategic plan, LA 23, I think is the name.
That is.
And then there's also Reset that Committee of 100, Council for a Better Louisiana, and PAR have put together. Love that. They have components that are similar in desire, right?
Oh, well, good.
I know, I love it. And then also the Pelican Institute. And so looking at some of the things that they're saying, I would love for us to be able to incorporate those things, and that's just one example, even dealing with Pelican Policy Institute, looking at lower government, flattening, corporate, eliminating, inventory,
Right.
The inventory tax, and other things that are there. But I'm absolutely looking at lowering taxes. Everything that we can do to flatten, to eliminate franchise and corporate. I definitely want to see us do that, shrinking the size of government. There's also other information out there. I don't know if people really looked at it, but during the legislative session, there were over 3,000 vacancies that were a part of the discussion. And I'm being conservative on that number, but over 3,000. We need to have a discussion, about that. And then there's also a report that State Civil Service puts out, and it's called Workforce Profiles. Love that. That's another thing, going in and looking that they have over 2,000 people that are eligible to retire in that last report.
Wow.
And so I'm not saying we're not trying to encourage, but there can be discussions, with the use of technology. Can we look at that number also? So just those numbers alone, we can look at having a discussion on real change and being able to, can we really look at those numbers? Can we really reduce those numbers?
Sure.
Do we really need, and it would obviously be buy-in.
Right.
It wouldn't be a draconian cut without having discussions.
Yeah.
But having over 3,000 vacancies funded, 3,000 vacancies, and the
Right.
work still got done.
Right.
Right. And having over 2,000 people eligible to retire, we can have some discussions about that.
That's clearly a clearer path forward to reduce the size of government,
Yes,
right?
yes.
You're not laying people off.
That's right.
It becomes not the retirement piece, but the other part's attrition in essence, right? If you
That's
started
right.
eliminating some of those
Right.
3,000 positions. Yeah, see, those are things that I would almost guarantee. I challenge anyone in our listening or viewing audience to tell me you knew that, because I didn't know it. And that is the kind of information that I think you bring from the inside that is incredibly valuable. And, it really is hard to quantify because government is so big. And it's unwieldy as well. So sitting through all those appropriations committee and capital outlay and all that, it's been quite, over the course of my 35-year career, very educational, but it's still hard to understand. There's a lot of people who've served a long time who don't know the process all the way through. So it's great that you do. So, well, that's exciting. So tell us what's most important. How are you going to win the race? What are you doing? How's it going? How are you going to win the race?
So knocking on doors,
Good.
digital media. I've been doing direct mail, and there's been some digital media going out,
Yeah.
digital advertising going out, having conversations, having meets and greets, going to different functions. But it's a lot,
Yeah.
knocking on doors, hearing the background, the feedback from people. It's been very interesting. I've been very encouraged. People, once they realize, who I am and what I bring to the table, they're very excited. I think a few have changed their minds, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And they've been open and honest about it. But, people want change, and people want us to be able to have real change, and so I've been encouraged by it. Two things what's very interesting recently. I went into one neighborhood that needs a lot of support. That's actually in the district, because there are pockets of areas that really need some attention in District 66. And the first thing, one of the people that talked to me said, "What are you going to do about that pothole?"
Oh yeah, that's a different deal.
You're right. It was really interesting. I thought that was funny that they asked me what I would do, and I said, "Well, listen, I would definitely address it." And then another voter that I ended up speaking with told me an interesting story about her child. He was 26, ended up getting Medicaid. He's now 31. He's a doctor making over $300,000 a year. This is the mom telling me, right? And he's still getting a Medicaid card.
Wow.
Right. And so there's some things that we want to be able to look at, and she was actually complaining. She's like, oh, can you do something about this? Can you help with this? She said, we can't believe he keeps getting this.
Right.
He's like, Mom, I'm getting this. I make over $300,000 a year.
Wow.
And so there are things that we have to really look at.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to do that. And even if I speak again about the issues, and again, I thank Secretary LeBlanc and his team. There are resources and things that are needed, but there are other issues that we want to be able to look at. And I know that they began trying to deal with resources to deal with they have a huge turnover issue with their officers. And I'm looking at the numbers. Like I said, as a staffer, I would look at the numbers to say, hey, it's kind of letting me know. It's like a health check.
Right.
Is this agency, are there still issues that need to be dealt with? And so I know when I looked at the numbers, only 3 of 8 of the institutions, their turnover rate changed according to the numbers that I read that they reported, right? So that tells me that there's still a need. And one of the other indicators, or some of the indicators let me know that there's still issues, is they have something that is called assault, the number of assaults. So you have assaults that are performed by offenders. And so you have offender on assaults, right? That number has still gone up. It went from 775 to 898. So these are assaults inside our state facilities.
Right.
We want that number to go down. We need to be able to provide support and assistance, like what's going on. It could be a function of turnover and retirements. And so that's alarming, that's concerning. Again, these people are being released. Over 14,000 people were released in fiscal year 23.
Right.
And so we need to be able to deal with those numbers. You even have the sexual offenses. They've gone up as well, and so we need to be able to look at what's going on internally.
Sure.
And it could be a function, we've done some things, we need to further mitigate the issues, but these are things that I think is a part of our overall crime discussion. Because if you had over here's the number. Have you had over 14,000 people released in fiscal year 23, and in fiscal year 22 over 13,000? We need to do something with these numbers. And so while we're talking about dealing with some reforms, we need to begin to help the bleed that's still taking place on the inside.
Sure. So little bit of self-disclosure, which my listening audience knows. They're probably getting tired of hearing it, but I have a half-brother. He's my brother, but he's my half-brother who served 16 years in DOC.
Oh, wow.
And he came out, and he's a productive member of society. He has a job. He bought a house, he got married, and he's doing really well. But 2 things he had. Inside, he had training. He did training from everything from welding to electrical to things of that sort, which he uses now. And he had structure. He had us when he got out, right? And that's a big deal. So having structure when you get out, having a family member. I mean, if you want to turn someone loose outside the prison gate and they don't have anywhere to go or anybody to help them, their chances of being successful are not going to be very good. And part of the criminal justice reform was a promise that there was going to be resources and wraparound services to try to help these people get in, and they didn't. And so that, there are a lot of people that think that, criminal justice reform failed. The reality of it is it was never fully implemented. And that here we are in Louisiana, we have a workforce shortage, right? We need more people to go to work.
That's right.
And we need more people to go to work in jobs that you don't have to have a college degree for, right? Instrumentation, so many other areas that you can. And I realize there are some restrictions relative to, the cards that you get, being able to go on a plant property and all that. But there are plenty of jobs out there that are not being filled, that could be filled from people who are coming out and trying to restart their lives. It's just not happening. So I'm all in. I have the personal experience of it, and I'm proud of my brother for coming out and making something of what he has left of his life. And he's younger, so he's got a lot. He's got a long way to go, but he's enjoying life and he's doing well, and that's what we need more people to be able to do. And so I appreciate you giving that some love, because I can promise you there's not a lot of people giving that attention, but it is a huge drain on the state. It's not only the money that we put into corrections, but it's the money that we spend, on the other side, fighting crime, putting people back in jail, giving them longer sentences, and so it's a big deal. And I appreciate you thinking about that. And you're the first candidate that spoke about that on this show. So
it's an economic development issue.
it really is.
It really is.
Look, in our little company here, the Tapman Group, we have a hard time finding people to work. Right now there are more jobs than there are people who want to work. I mean, part of that's COVID, no doubt about it. It's also a changing generational dynamic that's going to, I think, flip. But right now, try to find somebody to come to work and to show up for work and to work is really difficult. My team's rocking it. They're all rock stars, but it's just hard to find that, and it's hard to find people who are hungry enough to go out and make that happen. So it's a big deal. So any other things you want to share with our audience before we end? You can make your pitch for the vote. Are there any other areas you want to work in? Any other things you'd like to share?
Well, we could probably talk all day on
I know we
so
could,
many different things, but I do want to thank you for the opportunity to come.
Thank you for being here.
I'm excited about an opportunity to represent District 66 and the state. There's a lot of work ahead of us as a state, and I am optimistic. I'm excited about the opportunity for us to be able to elevate, for us to be able to move higher. And I believe that I'm the person for 66 to represent 66 that can be a part of a team to help go forward.
Well, it's exciting, and I appreciate you offering yourself again for public service. The other thing is that when you're elected, you will be in the majority, supermajority, so you will probably hit the ground running in terms of committee appointments and things like that, and so that's really exciting too. And who knows, when they redistrict, maybe one day I'll be in your district, but not now. So thank you so much for being here. Tell our audience how they get in touch with you, website, email, or anything like that.
Okay, so my website is Monique for hd66.com.
Okay.
My email address is moniqueappeaning@duck.com.
Okay.
And my phone number is 225-441-9567.
That's great. Thank you. I'm gonna offline. I'm gonna ask you about the duck thing, because I've never seen that email extension before. But it's interesting and probably gets people's attention. So that is our show. We are the Pelican Brief. You can find us on social media at Pelican Brief 225. That's our handle on all social media platforms. You can find us on all of the podcasting platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all of them. You can also find us on YouTube, because there's a video version of this if you're listening and would like to see Monique's pretty face, not mine. And that is at the Pelican Brief 225. That again is on YouTube. You can also email us at thepelicanbrief225@gmail.com. That is our show for today. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.
The Pelican Brief is an off-script production.